right. All right. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us today for DIY drip irrigation. This is hosted by the City of Keller Public Library and Tarrant Regional Water District. And so before we get started and before I introduce our speaker today, I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about TRWD. And so, like I said, this presentation is sponsored by TRWD, and that's Tarrant Regional Water District. We're the local raw water supplier. And so what that means is that we've got 4 area lakes and then all of the pipelines and the infrastructure that we manage in order to bring raw surface water over to water treatment plants. And then those water treatment plants in your communities treat it to drinking water standards, and then they provide it to you in your home and in your businesses. And part of what TRWD does also is that we partner with the cities within Tarrant County. So cities like Keller, Arlington, Mansfield, Fort Worth, and we offer these type of water and conservation education programming. And so the reason why TRWD is interested in offering this educational programming to you is that conservation is really an important water supply strategy to continue to supply water to a growing population. And so that's why we're sponsoring this educational program here. And we have lots of other water conservation resources out there as well. And so all of those can be found at SaveTarrantWater.com. So if you go to SaveTarrantWater.com, you can sign up for free watering advice. And so that comes weekly and it goes by your location. And you can either get it on your email or you can get it on your cell phone. And it'll just basically look at the weather that week and tell you how much approximately you should water your lawn based on your location within Tarrant County. You can also sign up for a free sprinkler evaluation if you're a Tarrant County resident. And so what that means is that a licensed irrigator will come to your house for free and they'll check out your entire sprinkler system and let you know how much water you're using and if there's any waste that's happening and how you can kind of shore up your system and make sure that it's working as efficiently as possible. And then also at SaveTarrantWater.com, you can go and check out a list of events and classes just like this one that we are having in the future. And then there's also tons of water saving tips and videos. And so all of our previous classes that we've had just like this are also up on the website. And so you can go look and see about some of our previous classes and videos of those. Another thing that we do in order to offer some of this educational programming is that we partner with other organizations like the Tarrant County Master Gardeners and Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service to offer some of these educational programs. Okay, so now that I've told you a little bit about TRWD, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our speaker and turn it over to her. So like I said, today this is DIY drip irrigation. My name is Heather Bass, and I'm a conservation specialist with TRWD. And today we're going to be hearing from Dr. Dotty Woodson. And Dotty is an irrigation expert, and she's retired now, and she works with orchids now, but she used to work for Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service. All right, Dotty, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you.
Okay, thank you very much. I sure appreciate her setting this up with all of you and allowing all of you to come in and see this. And our whole goal here is, like she said, water conservation. It's one of the least expensive ways we can make our water resources more efficient in the future, or not more efficient, but be there in the future. Because I'll tell you right now, there's many states in the United States, many countries in the world, that their water supplies are still there, but a lot of times their population has grown faster than what their water supply can service. And so there are many countries and many states who have very, very strict water use programs out there for that reason. So why are we talking about drip irrigation? Well, during the drip irrigation season, I want you to know all water companies, your city, every city has to report to the Texas Water Development Board about how much water is used, increased use, during the irrigation season. And they consider that June, July, and August. And I hate to tell you, but there are some places that say it increases by 35%, but oh my gosh, there are few cities in Texas who report the water use increases by 70%. And so we've got to understand that when we irrigate, we are irrigating with drinking water that's gone through the drinking water treatment plant. Tarrant Regional Water District provides a raw water from the lakes and rivers and creeks. That's raw water, untreated water, but that has to go through a water treatment plant. So the water that is delivered to your house through your water meter is all drinking water. Now, most of that water, of course, is going to go into your house, but it also, the line that goes into your house tees out here to go to your irrigation system if you have one. And this is what we have to talk about. What is that irrigation system and how can you save, you know, the water and therefore decrease your water bill? So the reason we talk about drip irrigation is for that reason. So drip irrigation can be 90% efficient, and it puts the water out under very, very low pressure, very, very slow. So you're not going to have a lot of water thrown into the air like you do with a sprinkler system that may evaporate and be blown away by the wind. So it's very, 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 very efficient. Sometimes when I do irrigation audits, I find, unfortunately, irrigation systems only about 35% efficient. And boy, the highest I've ever done is 70% efficient. And those are usually irrigation audits I've done on properties that are very, very, very highly maintained. And a lot of us, you know, we love our sprinkler system, but we don't necessarily maintain it well. And that's why we do one class on called Irrigation Quick Fixes, showing you how you could fix it yourself, make it more efficient yourself. The supplies for drip irrigation are very, very easily available. You know, almost all the big box stores sell them. Of course, all the irrigation supply places sell them. Some garden centers sell them. And what you need to know is how easy it is either to put in a drip irrigation system because you don't have an irrigation system, to attach a drip irrigation system to your outdoor water spigot, or to convert an existing drip irrigation system to, existing spray irrigation system to drip irrigation. The other thing that you may want to check on, all the different cities they have a drought and water emergency plan, but they also have a water conservation plan. But when water restrictions come into play because of a very, very, very long drought, or an emergency because the major pipeline is broken, then we go into water restrictions. And sometimes drip irrigation, particularly around your trees and particularly around your foundation, are exempt from those restrictions. And I know a lot of times when we had our drought back, you know, between 2010 and 2015, we had a lot of people putting drip irrigation around their trees and their foundation in order to be able to water those valuable, valuable things that we have, our home and our trees, very valuable. And then it reduces water loss due to evaporation, since it's applying water either underground if we're going subsurface under a lawn area, or we're putting it in our flower beds, our shrub beds, our ground cover beds, and we can cover it with mulch. And so therefore the water's going straight into the ground at a very low rate and under low pressure. Now, why is this so important for me to stress that? The reason why is some of our irrigation systems, these sprinkler heads pop up and they put water out the distance the nozzle says to throw it, and the pattern, you know, half circle, full circle, quarter circle, you know, all that, but it's spraying it up in the air. And so a lot of evaporation occurs, and oh my gosh, if it's a windy day, a lot of wind displacement occurs. And sometimes, almost all the time, as a matter of fact, this nozzle and the pressure that's going through your system is putting the water out faster than the ground could absorb it. And so a lot of times when we see this, we recommend you change your irrigation schedule to what we call a cycle and soak schedule. And you have more than one time this goes off for short periods of time. On a slope, we recommend it do 3 cycles or even 4 cycles, depending on on that slope. And it really, really, really helps you get the water into the ground. If it puts water out faster than the ground could absorb it, then it runs off into the storm drain. It goes untreated, unfiltered into the nearest creek, river, or lake. The other thing you have to understand, it reduces the loss and contamination due to irrigation runoff. And that's what I mean. If your spray irrigation or your rotors are putting water out faster than the ground could absorb it, boy, it runs off. And it carries your soil particles, erosion with it. It carries any pesticides or fertilizers you put in it. All that goes down, unfiltered, untreated, into a creek, river, or lake. Reduces leaching of water and nutrients below the root zone. The other thing neat about this is we have clay soil. In clay soil, the water doesn't go straight down. It spreads as well as going down. And we could very easily use a screwdriver to tell how long to run our drip irrigation system by how deep that water has gone. And then, you know, how far it has spread from the drip tubing. Easy, easy thing to do. And then, of course, it saves water and saves money because of the efficiency of it. And if you all want to do this, you will love this. I think this is a neat thing on the house, and you can put your chairs out there in your barbecue pit and, you know, have a really, really nice time. But my goodness, how would you irrigate something like that? I hate to say it, but if we put spray heads in there, that stucco wall would not be there for very, very long, because when you put spray irrigation in, of course, you would put the type that throw water just, you know, side to side, not up against the wall or out into the sidewalk. But still, this is an ideal location to put drip irrigation system. And therefore, what we can look at is matching the water application rate, inches per hour, with the soil infiltration rate and the plant water requirements. This is so important for us to think about. And so we can apply the water directly to the root zone, reduce overspray, evaporation. Properly designed and installed drip line systems are 90% efficient. I put one in out here, and I put it in about 25 years ago out in my garden next to my orchid greenhouse. It still works. Now, I've had to repair it a couple of times, and before this is over, we're going to show you, you know, the type of repairs that you might have to make. Okay, the one other thing that I think is very, very important for us to understand, because we have to look at all the homes being built, all the water that they're going to require. One of the rules that was passed back in 2019 is all new drip irrigation systems require that if you have impervious pavement on a side that you put in, or it's 48 inches wide, you put in drip irrigation. Now, a lot of us have retro done that. We've done that in our, what are called our parkways, where there's a bit of landscaping or maybe just turf grass between our sidewalk and our roadway. A lot of our cities have put drip irrigation in their mediums in order to, you know, follow the, we don't want to use spray irrigation and put water out in the street anymore. And I'll show a picture of that and the wonderful, wonderful way they stop that. Not spray water over impervious surfaces, you know, concrete, asphalt, brick, wood, you know, stone, set and mortar, walls, fences, sidewalks, and street. Very important for we understand that. The other thing I think it's very important for us to understand is that homeowners association cannot disallow you converting an existing system to drip irrigation. Most homeowners association that have a landscape requirement in their covenant will say that you have to have a spray irrigation system. You have to use such and such a amount of lawn area, you know, compared to planted beds. And that's not true anymore because of the legislation. Senate Bill 198 passed this. So it wants to encourage promoting solid waste composting of all your yard waste. That's very important. Leaving your grass clippings on the ground to become part of your lawn soil. installing rain barrels or rainwater collection system to irrigate with so you don't have to use drinking water, and implementing efficient irrigation, which includes underground drip or other drip systems. And then using a drought-resistant landscaping, including water conserving turf grasses. So if you're thinking about this and you have a landscape that is a homeowners association that requires that you put a plan into them, if you have any resistance at all, you just bring up the Senate Bill 198. Now, most homeowners associations are done, newer ones are run by property managers, and eventually it's turned over to the people who want to help run the homeowners association, homeowners in the development. And one of the things is a lot of them copy the same covenant over and over and over again. These are the requirements. And a lot of times, if they are really paying attention, because I've had many of them contact me about this rule, and they were like, oh, wow, well, we can change all our entranceway coming into our development, you know, that parkway along the road that's always flooding because of spray irrigation's always getting water out there. They were very, very glad to embrace these ideas of water conserving landscape plants and drip irrigation. They worded it in this law using drought-resistant landscape and water-conserving natural turf grasses. I don't like to use the term drought-resistant landscape plants. I like to use water-conserving landscape plants also. And you'll see that changing more and more in the verbiage that is put out for homeowners. So this is what we have to look at. We have the option to design and install for a new landscape. Just use all drip irrigation right at the beginning. And this is something that newer, like I say, newer homes, particularly in their parkway, are doing in some way, and sometimes between the two houses, you know, where the builders have created an alleyway there, mainly to take stormwater back out to the street, but you know, for separation of the houses also. And then convert an existing irrigation system, your spray irrigation system, can be converted to drip, and then to attach to a garden faucet, a spigot outdoors. And so this is what we're going to look at. I'm showing this picture because they didn't put the mulch out yet. And I was so glad they turned this on and allowed it to run so you can see the circles of the wetting. Of course, now this is in prepared soil. You know, they mix the clay and tilled in compost to the clay. So they got a real good base to put their ground cover in their plants. They're putting their foundation plantings in first. Foundation plantings, everyone thinks it's, you know, to hide your slab foundation, but you know what else it's for? It's to remind you to water your foundation. We have shrinking and swelling soils here that can cause foundations to crack. Very important. Drip irrigation is the best for that. Spray irrigation's okay. Your foundation planting, if you keep mulch on it, that holds the water in there more consistently, and so that's good too. But I just want you to see that pattern that is created. And so first we're going to look at, you know, converting a existing irrigation, because I believe that's what most of you probably already have, although some of you are going to design, you don't have an irrigation system, you're using a hose and sprinkler or soaker hoses, and you might want to, you know, add this to your landscape and then attach it to a garden spigot. So we're going to look at this. This is attaching it to a garden spigot. And then what we have to look at here is the slow application rate. Why is it so good on clay soils? So if you look over here, and we have this chart in inches per hour because that's how application rates are done. Now, in your drip tubing, it's going to be gallons per hour. And of course, we can convert that to inches per hour with a simple mathematical formula. But look at this. Most of us are going to have a flat, maybe 2, 3, 4% slope in our landscape. If the builder's done a good job or the developer's done a good job, you want the slope slightly away from your house. You don't want it extremely. But if we look at this infiltration rate. 0.13, you know, inches an hour, 0.4 inches an hour. I mean, this is very, 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 very tight clay soil. And if you have a slope, my goodness, it even goes down. And so because of that, if we're putting water out at 0.6 inches an hour or 0.7 or 0.8 or heaven forbid 0.9 or 1 inch an hour, it's not going into the soil. It's running off. Now in your planted beds, where you've done a lot of soil preparation with compost and you put a big mulch layer there and you maintain that mulch layer, the infiltration rate is different there. That's where everyone seems to want to put their drip irrigation because they don't want to cut through their lawn. But we'll show you that there's a different type of trencher than a ditch witcher to do that. But this is what I want you to understand. I want you to buy into how important this is. Now, where can you use drip irrigation? I made a 20 by 20 rose garden, and then I put a water garden in the middle and 2 perennial gardens in the middle. Really, really, really fun to have this out here by my orchid greenhouse. And I want you to know those roses loved it. Now, unfortunately, my 40 roses aren't there anymore. I only have about 15 left because of rosette. I'm going to slowly bring more in and replace those. But perennial garden, shrub area, vegetable garden, wonderful in a vegetable garden. Ground cover areas, your foundation watering, your parkways, between your sidewalk and roadway, parking lot islands, mediums. Orchards, vineyards, and greenhouses have been using drip irrigation for over 2 decades, And then, of course, we're adding lawn there because guess what? We now have subsurface drip irrigation that will work really good in lawn areas, and I'll show those pictures. So this was a master gardener project at the Denton County, one of their sub-courthouses or sub-office buildings. And everyone that pulled in that parking lot, because the island came out, sort of took up 2 parking spaces out. And when that spray irrigation came on, everyone was like, ah, it's getting all over my car. Or if you leave the windows open in your car. And, you know, it was a mess. A lot of runoff was occurring. Plants didn't do well anyway, you know, so the master gardeners converted this to what we call inline drip irrigation. So I'm going to hold up all the different samples of irrigation for you to see. But first, I want you to see the possibilities. Unfortunately, you see the slopes towards the house instead of away from the house. So instead of, if we irrigate too much and the soil can't absorb it, instead of running out into the storm drain, it's going to run into the house. If there's a lot of rainfall, maybe over 3 or 4 inches, which we get sometimes, not much, but sometimes, it's going to go right up under that porch and into that front door. This is an ideal place to put drip irrigation, particularly in the planted beds, but in the lawn area also. Another island, parking lot island, that was changed. And I think if you look real closely, you can see they probably need to put more mulch out because you can see the tubing. And so a lot of times what we're doing with that is we're making a web of tubing through there, sort of a matrix of tubing through the area that we want covered. Okay, so the types of drip irrigation. First of all, I want to introduce you to this type of tubing called drip line. Now, drip line is a type of tubing. You see that hole right there in there? So the emitter, the nozzle, like you'd have on a spray irrigation, is actually inside this. You can sort of see a bulge right there, and it is inside there. And one of the things that that does is if you do get any trash in your line, it sort of stops it from stopping up this hole. And so this is very important that you understand what drip tubing is. Now, this is 1/2 inch drip line, okay? Now, we also have what is called 1/4 inch drip line. And you can see right here, a big bulgy area, and then you can see the little hole that's going to let the water out. And again, it sort of filters the water in there. We always want to put a filter in before the water comes through all our drip tubing, and we'll show that. But I just want you to be familiar with it. Now, the other thing that you have to understand is both of these type of tubing has a 1/4-inch strip line, has 1/4-inch no hose in it line. We call these delivery tubing. And you can buy these. They come in 50 foot, if I can get it unhooked here. I've used a lot of it, of course, but it comes in 50-foot rolls at the Home Depot and Lowe's and other places that sell the drip line. And same with the 1/2-inch drip line and the 1/2-inch delivery tube, because we have 1/2-inch delivery tube that we can use to deliver the water to where we want it to go, but we can also use it as what we call a point source drip irrigation. Point source drip irrigation is where we will put a dripper right by the plant that we want to deliver the water to. And so that can be done very, very easily by you determining what type of dripper you need on that plant. For an example, if I have lamb's ear growing over here, I don't need much water. But if my roses do. And so this is point source drip irrigation. It won't deliver the same amount like a drip line will. The drip line is going to put the water out at 0.5 gallons an hour, 0.6 gallons an hour, 0.9 gallons an hour, and 1 gallon an hour. And so you can see how that drips out of that hole. But the point source, I can put a 5 gallon an hour dripper on my rose bushes, and then I can put a 0.5 gallon an hour dripper on my lamb's ear, because we all know lavender and lamb's ear, we're going to kill it if we put too much water on it. So you see how this goes through? You see how that can punch a hole in here for me? So I can punch that hole right in there very, very easily. See my hole punch? And then I can snap. See, I can snap this right in here, and that's going to give me the gallons per hour that I need, whether it's 0.5 or 5 gallons an hour. Also, they can be snapped out, and you can wash them out like you would a nozzle on your spray irrigation. Different types of companies will sell different types of hole punch. I just like this one because sometimes when I'm doing this, like, you know, I've done my garden, but if I'm at a school and we're doing a school garden or a community garden, you know, you get tired of this, the hole punch like this. Takes a little bit more strength. Wear gloves, you know, because it helps. Now, micro irrigation is a little bit different because this is what greenhouses have been using for years and years and years. So I can put a 1/2-inch tube down the center of my greenhouse bench, and then I can put what is called a micro irrigation or drip irrigation on the end of that tube. This has no holes in it, just the 1/2-inch one. I will put a hole in. This is called a coupling that I put in there, and then this can go in each of my plants. Now in my greenhouse, I use the type that I can shut all the way. So if that plant gets sold, I'm not going to have water coming out of here. And then I can open it up depending on the water needs of that plant. So if it's a fern and I need lots of water, I'll open up this big time. And if it's an orchid, I'm going to close it to not allow so much water out. All kinds of cool stuff like that. Micro irrigation is also used in landscapes and other locations. I hope I'm not making this too confusing, because I don't mean to. I mean to give you enough knowledge to empower you to decide which of these methods you want to use. So point source drip irrigation, the advantage of that is what? We can put different drippers on different plants. This pressure coming through the tube will all be the same, because we're going to use a pressure regulator. I had my pressure regulator sitting here somewhere. And we're going to use those to have the pressure correct for drip irrigation. Oh, right in front of me. You know, we have a pressure regulator that we're going to put in here in order to have the correct pressure for that. When you buy your little drippers, one of the things you have to look at on the packaging is, say, that they are pressure regulated. And so if I want, you know, they sell them in 10, 15, and 20 dripper packages. A lot of times they don't sell them singly, but it's okay to buy, you know, 5-packet or 10-packet because you're going to use them over the years. And so that's another thing, you know, have a nice box like I have right here to put everything in so you can find it when you need it. And so the 1/4-inch tubing all have, you know, this is a T that I can use. See how they're barbed here? So once I put it in the tubing, or if I use a coupling to put tubings together, and then somewhere I have, well, I guess I didn't put it there, but they have elbows also. Okay, now on the 1/2-inch tubing, one of the things, we have an elbow, we have a coupling. There are these wonderful, I use these so much in school and community gardens because I'm usually coming in there and we want to go up the top of their plant. Their beds are usually made with cinder blocks or wood, and we want to go this way, but we also want to go, you know, down the center. And then there's also elbows. And so we have to know that all of this is available. So is it, how many of you played Lincoln Logs when you were a kid, or with your Tinker toys, or some of you are maybe too young to know about that stuff, but how about Legos? That's how easy all of this can go together. Now, the strength that it takes to put these barbed pieces, I put a piece here and I put a piece here, that's a coupling, is a little bit more sometimes. That we're going to do this a lot. And so one of the things that I recommend, of course, is that you have gloves available that have good padding on it, because it gives you more strength, either rubber or leather, something of that sort, to give you the strength to do it. And the way you're going to put these together is by rocking and rolling them. And so we don't just shove this in. See, it's not going to just shove in. If it did, it wouldn't be staying. And so you're going to have to rock and roll till you get that in there. Sometimes, because we run out of strength doing that after doing 700 of them, and so a heat gun is available for you to use. A lot of my master gardeners, when we're working on community gardens and school gardens, will bring a hair dryer. And what they will do is heat the end of this, not a lot, because you don't want it, you know, to smush in on itself, but heat this enough that this fitting will go in there very, very easily, go in there very, very easily. And then as this gets unheated, it grabs onto the barbs. And so it's very important that we understand this. The heat gun is available at any hardware store. They sell it to remove wallpaper and paint and rust and other things. I had it to, because this is how old I am, sweating copper pipe when I was younger. You know, that's how you sweated copper pipe together. So we have different brands: Toro, Rainbird, Netafim, and Landscape is what's sold by Ewing Irrigation. And you can see that, you know, we've got all these fittings that go in there together. There is a new type of fitting by Rainbird where the tubing goes in these. These are a little bit more expensive than these type of fittings, but maybe well worth it. And if you can see inside here, the barbed part is actually inside there. It's made of a really good compact resistant plastic, so it won't break. Other brands have different fittings. So no matter what brand you choose, you have to make sure that you're buying the correct fittings to go with those brands. The tubing comes in brown, comes in all the tubing. The tubings with no holes in it, the liver tubing, that comes in black, brown, green, and purple. And the drip line, same thing, comes in black, brown, green, and purple. Most of us use the brown because it's real easy to cover with that mulch and it sort of disappears. Eventually, the irrigation rules will change in Texas as well as the United States through the irrigation rules, but also through the plumbing code, that everything with non-potable water has to be purple. And so you'll see a lot of purple PVC pipes being sold on the heads of your pop-ups will eventually all be purple, you know, things like that, because many of our cities in Texas are encouraging rainwater harvesting for irrigation. In fact, the city of Austin will actually give you a rebate up to $500 or more, because I think there's a $5,000 one depending on what you're doing, to get you to cut off your irrigation system from city water and just use harvested rainwater. So there's some opportunities out there from various cities that want you to do that. So it's very important for you to know that. Now notice up at the top where I'm pulling the tubings out of the row, and one of the master gardeners is holding the row. I always buy the tubing in 100-foot rows. And I'll tell you why. Because the way they clamp those together, you know, tie it together with not a clamp, but a piece of plastic. If I roll that 100-foot row out, particularly on a sunny day, all that circlingness will go away. If I try to take out the length of pieces that I need as I go, it's a little bit harder to get that out. Now, these master gardeners, when they handed me their landscape design for their subcourt house, I mathematically figured out they needed about 500 feet of drip irrigation tubing, the inline tubing. I forgot to say by 500-foot rows. So they bought a 500-foot row. And this is fine for a professional to do, because they have these wonderful caddies that you can put all your tubing in, cut those straps that are holding the tubing together, and they have a thing that they put down so it's not going to become a slinky. If we cut the straps on that, it would be a slinky gone wild all over that garden, be in everyone's way. A lot of crimping will be going on. And so 100-foot row, spread it out to get all the curliness out of it, and you're going to be real happy doing that. Okay, so inside there, what you have to realize is they have this way where it's cut away to show you what we call the emitter. You know, the hole is going to be right here, and this is one of the things that helps keep the water from clogging up that. If you have a lot of calcium in your water, using groundwater, well water, you know, we're going to filter it all going in, but this is a situation you have to look at. So the emitters are every 12 inches, every 18 inches, every 24, every 26. And most of the time in clay soil, we're going to use that every 12 inches. And then in our garden, then we can put the tubing that runs along your shrubbery or your ground cover or your flower beds or your vegetable beds. We can put that about 12 inches apart. And I'll show you that wooding pattern. Now, some of them apply the water at 0.5 gallons an hour, 0.6 gallons an hour, 0.9 gallons an hour, not 0.1, but 1 gallon an hour. Now, Rainbird has come up because of our heavy clay soil, with a subsurface drip irrigation tubing. And it is putting water at 0.3 gallons an hour, very slow. This is a cutaway into the hole, and you can see there's a little tiny copper. Can you see that copper piece right there? This is what it looks like when it's not cut away. This is what regular drip tubing looks like, you know, with its little hole. And so what we have to look at is, this is designed for subsurface. The copper is there because copper is toxic to plants, and if the roots try to grow in there, which very rarely happens, but could, that's why that little copper piece is there. And so we have all kinds of fun things to learn, fun. Like I said, this is the, you know, what do I want to call it? You know, the pieces we're going to push into the tubing, and these barbs are going to keep the tubing from blowing away when the water pressure is there. There are external fittings that Rainbird has, and the company called Dig, D-I-G, Home Depot carries Dig products, and they have these outside, and the barb is on the inside of that and holds it so it will not blow apart. And these have the elbows and T's and everything. And you can see, these are the supplies you're going to need. If you're going to do your point source, because you want to have different drippers on different plants, we're going to use these. This is a cutter. This will cut both your 1/2 inch and your 1/4 inch. This is a micro irrigation where I will put my 1/4 inch tubing here, and then here is the coupling that I would be putting in to my 1/2 inch tubing to deliver that water out. These are the dig type. I think the company was doing this type. I'm not sure they're still doing those, but it's a little bit different in that as you put that on here, very, very easy to get on. And then you push this down to hold. Can you see that? I have my hand in the way. You push this down over the tubing to keep it in place. Some people find that very easy, but boy, you've got to watch your pressure there. Then we have different things. This one right here is right here. And so if we're adding, going down to our main line on our irrigation, this is one way we can put this into, and then we have this coming up. This one is what I use when I'm doing a new one. I'm going to bring my pipe up. I'll show you pictures of it. I'm going to bring my pipe up and start my drip irrigation tubing, and very, very easy to use all these different ones. Now, one of the things we have to realize, if we're going to convert to an existing system, we might need to understand that the spray irrigation cannot run at the same time as a drip irrigation because of the different run times we need. And so the other tool that you're going to see are these caps. The caps would go on top of here, unscrew this and screw this in order to keep those others from doing. But we'll talk about that in more detail. And so this is our average school garden or community garden. A lot of time these are in raised beds. And you can see we have our water coming in here from our water source. And right there is like a ball valve. And so I can put this in there, and this is on when the head of the valve runs parallel, and then it is off when it's perpendicular. And so they have these for the 1/2 inch tubing, and believe it or not, they have them for the 1/4 inch tubing. My daughter uses those in her vegetable garden, the 1/4 inch tubing. Now, I will share with you all the school gardens for many, many years, and the community gardens. I've always used the 1/2 inch tubing. And in order to make the water delivery even throughout this, we loop the system. So here's a T, here's a T, here's a T. Here is an elbow, here is a T, and here is an elbow. So this is an elbow, and this is a T. So can you imagine that elbow being on those back corners and the T's being up here, because we're hooking all of it together. This is what's called a looped system. I do this in landscapes too, and it makes the pressure more even throughout the garden. Now, of course, they wet this area because they're using transplants, and so they could see where the water was making the best circles, and they put their transplant right there. Now, that's really not necessary because the water is going to go down into your soil, but at the same time, it's going to spread horizontally, and we can easily discover how deep and how wide it goes by using a screwdriver. The screwdriver is like sticking a toothpick in a cake, and you can see how wet it is. In this case, then, we've covered it with straw, not hay. We go to the feed store and you buy a bale of straw. Straw is left over from the agricultural industry of our grain crops. When the combine goes through there to get all the grains, and then another, or sometimes it's the same machine, then bales all the straw, that's holding up the grain to be harvested. Fun thing. Lots of information. This is my daughter's, and so you can see that what she's done right here is she has put this through the main line, and she wants a walkway there so she can reach vegetables on each side. And then she's using no holes in this except what she's putting in it with the little tiny, the little tiny barb couplings, the little barb couplings here. And so you can see then she has one of those little tiny shut-off valves. So if nothing's growing in that row, then she can turn it off. Of course, this is my 1/2 inch one, not my 1/4 inch one. She can turn it off, and that's very important that we all know that those things are available. So this tubing has no holes in it, and I'm sorry, let me get back. And this little tubing, delivery tubing, has no holes in it. The drip line starts right here when it gets into the area where she's not going to be walking. Anytime you walk in the garden, you have to realize you're compacting the soil. So you want to do that as little as possible. So you can see that comes in 50-foot rows, not 100-foot rows. You can see the strapping on it. Same with the 1/2 inch comes with that strapping on it. And like I said, the first thing you might want to do, well, it's easy to, it's a mess here in my box because I took the strapping off of the little 1/4 inch, but the 1/2 inch, you want to take that strapping off, stretch it out and let it get all those kinks out of it. Very, very important. The 1/4 inch tubing can be hooked to a faucet, but it has this little adapter here where the delivery, no dripping here, goes into that fitting. And I'm not sure I put it on my table here, but it's very easy to find anywhere that sells the 1/4 inch tubing will have this faucet adapter. Now, does anybody see anything wrong with this faucet right here? It doesn't have a backflow prevention device. All faucets should have a backflow prevention device, just like your irrigation system should have a backflow prevention device. And what this does, it keeps any water from flowing into your household water, and so it's very, very important. If your house is not built in the 40s like mine, you have a backflow prevention device on your faucet. This is what it looks like, and when you turn your faucet off, you'll see a lot of water, no matter what's connected to this, coming out. And that's because it's emptying what is ever attached to it. So there's no opportunity to cross-contaminate water that may be going into your area. Now, this is our idea that you can do this yourself with a new irrigation system, convert an existing system or attach it to a faucet, or in some cases, place out in the landscape and attach it to a garden hose that you would pull out to that area. I see this done a lot with vegetable gardens. They don't know where the main line is to hook into for attaching it to the irrigation system. A main line is the PVC pipe that always has water in it. The lateral line are the lines that come off of that main line, go through an irrigation valve by the directions from your irrigation controller, and then it runs your irrigation system for you. The main line is right here, and it goes all the way through your front yard, side yard, and a little bit into your backyard, depending on how many zones you need in your backyard. And so that's what we can do. The other one is that you can hire a licensed irrigator. Now, I've been teaching these classes for many, many years, and I have people of all ages coming to these classes, even teenagers, because they're using it as part of their field trips for their science or their math or, any of that. And teenagers, college students using it as a field trip to get credit for, out into the community gardens where they're helping put everything together. It's just a wonderful, wonderful thing. And I wish we were all together so we could, put some tubing together and see it. But I hope I'm giving you the idea that it's an easy breezy thing, except for, the getting it together. You may want that hair dryer or that heat gun, or you can hire a licensed irrigator. About maybe 3 or 4 weeks after one of my classes, I got a call from one of the ladies who had attended the class, and she said, "Man, I was so excited after taking your class. It's something I wanted to do, and I recommend you always start with a small zone, shrub zone or ground cover zone, or herb garden, vegetable garden. Start small, and then when you see how easy it is, then think about doing others. But start slow." And I'd recommended that everyone do this. She called me back 3 or 4 weeks later and she said, you know, I've just decided I can't do this. You know, I don't have the strength to do this in my hand. And I said, oh, okay. And she said, I'm 82 years old. And I'm going, whoa, you know, okay, I understand. I'm 70 and I understand. You don't have the strength in your hands you used to. But hire a licensed irrigator. I want you to know, she called me back 2 days, maybe it was 3 days later. She called me back and she said, you know, there's a lot of licensed irrigators over there that don't want to do drip irrigation. And I'm going, yeah, I sort of understand that. Number one, they might not have the education. And number two, it's time consuming. It's time consuming to put all this tubing together. And it's real easy to get a ditch witch out there and make the things and put the PVC pipe, glue it together and take the wire back to your controller and we're out of there, you know. But drip irrigation's a little bit more time consuming. You have to realize licensed irrigators have gone to great expense to become licensed irrigators, and they have to continue their their extended education. Every year they have to get 8 credits, and that means 8 one-hour classes. And so we have to understand that sometimes they want to do the easy stuff, not the other stuff. And you have to understand that some of them charge up to $100 an hour or more because of the expenses of running their business and keeping their license. So drip irrigation works under low pressure, anywhere from 25 PSI, that stands for pounds per square inch, to 30 PSI. You check with the manufacturer, it's all going to be on all the label of all the supplies. So on my top picture here, what I have is a pressure regulator like I showed you. And this is what is often used if we are going to start a new system, and our water source will start through here. We're also going to have a filter here, and sometimes, let's see, this is my filter that's going to go in here, and then I'm going to put a drip irrigation adapter right here, and we're good to go. This is for a new system. This also can be a way we might convert an existing system. All of this would go in the valve box right here. And so sometimes we have to get a larger valve box. Now, some of the manufacturers, instead of having a separate pressure regulator and a separate filter, what they're doing is they're putting them together. So this is the way the water is going to flow. This is your pressure regulator, and this is your filter. The filters are anywhere from 100 to 150. This is a 100 mesh filter. This would be good for clean well water or your city water, and then the pressure regulator. The other one that I have that it's all tied together is just as large almost as what I was showing you. Now these, of course, go after the valve if you're changing an existing system. The valve has to have the 60 or 30 PSIs that you're going through your irrigation main line. Now, I'm pretty much holding these wrong because it goes through the filter and then through the pressure regulator to do that. But you don't want any of that on the water delivery side of your valve. Now, if we're going to do this from a water spigot, you know, what we have is this type of thing. Now, I want you to very, very carefully look at the comparison. Where's that little small one? Look at the difference between pipe threading and garden hose threading. The pipe threading, where's that rainbird one? I wanted to show you that one. Oh, right here. The pipe threading is a much smaller, narrower circle threading, and then the garden hose threading. The reason why I want you to know this very, very, very carefully, because I've had this happen And other people have had this happen. When you go to Lowe's or Home Depot, they have the boxes side by side by side by side by side. And so they have pressure regulators like this, side by side. And one of them has pipe threading, and one of them has garden hose threading. And if we're going to change our spigot to hold all of this equipment, we need our filter to have pipe threading. We need our pressure regulator to have pipe threading. We need our timer to have pipe threading, and we need the tubing adapter to have pipe threading. And so we've got to understand that we got to look at those, because some people take something out of the box up there. I can never reach the box, but my daughter can for me. And I look at it, I go, no, 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 that's pipe threading. I want a garden hose threading. And I say, put it back in the right box, you know, and so no one else will walk home with a pipe threaded one when they want a garden hose threaded one. Very important for you to understand. Now, these big, big pieces that are designed to go into your valve box with your valve, I want you to understand they're going to not be a 1/2 inch or 3/4 inch. They're usually going to be an inch, because usually your line going in is about that. You can see on the valve right here, see how the big pipe coming from my main line is, but I'm going to put that pressure regulator right here. And again, I can screw that directly into here, but in doing this, I have what's called an adapter here. And so it's going from threaded to slip. It's going from 1 inch to 3/4 inch, because that's what my line is going to be to my sprinkler heads. This is 1/2 inch here. And so I don't mean to be confusing, and I'm hoping not, but as you get all this together, one of the best things you can do, of course, is draw it out on a piece of paper, not by scale by any means, like a licensed irrigator would have to get their permit. But you're going to need to do this. The other question I'm always, always, always asked, particularly by community gardeners and landscapers that are doing it themselves, is how far can I run the tubing? And so, I mean, this is a very, very important question. So from my valve or from my spigot, how far can I run that tubing? And so this is one manufacturer's sample. All the other manufacturers are going to have this either around the tubing. They're going to have a piece of paper that has a chart like this, or it's on their website. And so at the end of all these slides, I'm going to show you the websites of all the major irrigation manufacturers that make this equipment, because they have wonderful tutorials on there, really good, helpful hints. So if inlet pressure is 15 PSI and I'm running the 0.6 gallons per hour, I can go 55 feet. If I'm running it the 0.9 gallons per hour, you know, then 194. This is a 12-inch spacing. If I go to 18-inch spacing, those numbers jump higher. And if I go to the 24-inch spacing, those go much, much higher. And so you can see that as you increase the pressure, your average main line is going to have 30, 40, or 50 PSIs coming through it. And so if you want to run this long distances, you know, you don't really need the pressure regulator on there, although it might behoove you to put one on anyway. Now, if we're installing a new system or putting it in a valve box, this is how we're going to put it. And so you can see this shutoff valve is one of my teachers long time ago was recommending that. But, you know, your valve has a shutoff valve, you know, and so if I really wanted to go into my valve, this is on, this is off, because see, it's perpendicular to the flow of water. But if I want to turn it on manually, I can turn it on right there. And so that's important for you to know. It's off under normal running conditions, because this is what's going to open and close according to what your irrigation controller tells it to do. But I'm not sure how much you need that shutoff valve there because of that. And then comes your filter. and then comes your pressure regulator. And like I said, even if you're going to run that 700 feet, you still might want the pressure regulator on there because there's always an opportunity the pressure will increase. So does everybody understand that? Every one of your zones in your irrigation system has one of these, and they talk to your irrigation controller. And we don't replace this. We add the filter and the pressure regulator to it. Does everybody understand that? There are arrows on here to tell you which way to put these things, so it makes it a little bit easier. And there's arrows on your valve too, but your valve will always be in there if you're going to do that. Now, your box where that valve is usually a round 6-inch box, and of course, this isn't going to fit in there with this. And so sometimes you have to extend that 6-inch hole and get one of the bigger irrigation boxes to put all of this in there. Now, that's one way of doing this, but now we're going to talk about another way. Okay, new system, you can see I've labeled where the main line is. Do y'all see that? And so this main line goes to the next zone and the next zone and the next zone and the next zone. And so what I do, if this is a brand new system, this is what is called a lateral line. And this water only gets water in it when this valve opens according to what I've set on my irrigation controller. And usually on this riser right here, I'd be putting a riser like this, and I would have a pop-up sprinkler head on it. But what I'm doing now, because it's a new system, I don't have that. I'm using one of these converters. These come in 1/2 inch, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch, 3/4 inch, and 1 inch. And right here, my barbs can start. So I can start my tubing right there. Now, I told you, I always like to loop the system, even if it's a small community vegetable garden or a school vegetable garden, I like to loop it. And so usually what I do then, this is the demonstration I set up at the Dallas Research and Extension Center. So this is all going to be under mulch. You know, I've just got mulch around it now, so you can see it. You can see I moved it away. And so this is coming up, and then immediately I'm putting a T. Do you see my T right there? Immediately putting a T, because guess what? I'm going to loop this all the way around the area that I want irrigated by that drip irrigation. Now, if you are converting a system, we're going to talk about how to figure that out. But in this case, we do it by the length of tubing and the pressure we're allowing through there. Does everybody understand that? Okay. This is 5 miles of drip irrigation tubing at Tarrant County College Northwest Campus, all on their medium. Even though their medium was much, much wider than what the city says you need to put drip irrigation in, they put it in anyway because they wanted to be doing the right thing. And so see how they're using all purple tubing, all purple boxes with their valve, their filter, and their pressure regulator in there. Now, in some cases, commercial sites, they might have 2 or 3 of these in the same big giant box in order to be able to watch those a little bit better. Now, the elbows are really, really good when you need tight, you know, we want them 12 inches apart, but sometimes you can loop them. Now, I want you to understand, where's that big piece? Oh, I dropped it again. I kept hitting it, I'm sorry, let me grab it. Okay. Now, like I said, it comes in 100-foot rows, and I lay it out so it can get all the kinks out of it. And then I've got to see, you know, what is the minimum, maximum I can bend it without crimping it. Because once you crimped it, sometimes it's very hard to get round again. Sometimes I put a coupling in there. But this is at the Forest Hill Library and just south of Fort Worth off of Highway 20. And so on one side of the library entrance, we put the drip irrigation, the point source, and we put a dripper at each of the shrubbery so people could see that. And on this side, we put the drip line so people could see both. And we left it above the ground for about 3 or 4 months as the library was sort of marketing it with their classes, but then we covered it all up with mulch. And I will share with you, we did this in the spring when it was nice and cool weather, and we had a lot of garden centers donate the plants, a lot of master gardeners helping, and the city of Fort Worth brought us all kinds of mulch and all kinds of compost in order to make these planted beds real nice. Well, about 3 months later, which was way into the heat of the summer, the librarian called me and said, I don't think it's working. And I'm going, oh, of course, did all the plants die? And she said, oh no, the roses are blooming, the salvia greca is blooming, the lantana is blooming. And I'm going, oh, it's getting water. You know, it's August, it's getting water. You know, and she said, oh, no, I can't see any water. I said, it's under the mulch. But, you know, my office in downtown Fort Worth, I drove over to Forest Hills and I scooted back some of the mulch. And I said, here's a hole. And when I turn a controller on to run, you'll see it dripping out of there. And so I was by the library wall and she was out here in the garden and she, no, I don't see it. I don't see it. And I'm going, what? And so I went over there and I could see it dripping, but she could not. I literally put my hand under there so that she could see the water dripping and accumulating in the palm of my hand. I wish I had had these, my tuna cans, because this is one way we can figure out our runtime by putting these under the dripper and timing, just like we would for a spray irrigation. How long does this need to run to get my water out at the depth that I want it out? How many inches of water per week do we want to put out? Anyway, so I have to introduce this little gadget right here. This has a coupling on the end, and I can put a hole in my drip irrigation tubing, you know, with my hole punch. And I could punch this into there. Every time the drip irrigation system runs, this is like a flag. Look at that. It flags up like this. And so librarian could see that it was running without having to do all the stuff that I showed her how to do. And I think that's something that if we're not real familiar with how plants act during July and August, you know, maybe that's something we all need in there. I think there's several different manufacturers that make because I think somewhere in my box, there's one with a yellow flag on it instead of a red flag on it. But boy, if that's by my red lantana or my red salvia greca, it doesn't matter what color it is, does it? And this is made by Toro. Maybe the other one's Rainbird. I don't know. But I do want you to know what all is available for you. This is for a ground cover bed, and you can see, you know, they put all the little transplants in there, and it is growing best right around the tubing, of course, but of course ground cover, that's what it's all about, is spreading. This was a real important area not to use spray irrigation because of the erosion factor. You know, this is on a slope and they tiered it down to the road level in the first floor of the building. You can see they have a retaining wall up here where there's a roadway, and then they dropped it down, but there's still a lot of slope here, still a lot of slope here where they planted large landscape plants like trees and shrub, but this is all going to be ground cover. And then parking lot mediums, a lot of our cities are changing their parking lot islands and their mediums to drip irrigation. This was already spray irrigation in here, and they use what is called a converter. And what a converter does is your valve is in there, you know, underground in a valve box. And instead of going and making that hole deep bigger and putting a bigger valve box around it, what they've done is they've taken one of the irrigation heads and taking the irrigation head off and put in what is called a converter. And the converter goes on your riser where the irrigation head is. Now look at this, how cool this is. Inside this, which is the same length as your irrigation head, is your filter, and then up here is your pressure regulator. So let me show you that. There's your pressure regulator, and then here is your filter. How about that? This converter is very, very easy to do. Now, I want you to know that, again, I like a loop system, and so I like to put a T on top of here in order to start a loop around. And you can see the converters and the valve boxes over here. They put this loop all the way around. And if you're going to do your 12-inch spacing, you want to bring this away from your curve about 6 inches. And I'm not sure positive they've done a good job there, but maybe they have. And because you have to remember that when the water drips down, it's going both ways, horizontally, not just vertically into the soil. Now, we can't run the drip irrigation at the same time as our spray irrigation, because this puts out water much, much more than this does, unless we can figure our precipitation rate is 0.6 gallons an hour, but it's not. It's probably 0.6 inches an hour, which is much, much more. And so we have these caps that we could put on it. And so we could unscrew the, this and get all our stuff out. And then we can put this cap on here, and that will be, either under your soil. I knew I needed 2 of these. Under your soil or under your mulch. Now, if we want to, one of the other things you can do is, your riser's 1/2 inch, and we could put a 1/2 inch cap on there and screw that on. There's several different kinds of caps that you could put on that. So this is converting an existing system. Does everybody understand that? Okay, good. I'm going to put this back together. I'll lose all the parts. Okay, this is on the other side of the library interest, and this is what we call a point source drip irrigation, where we are putting the dripper at every single one of our shrubbery. And like I said, this is very, very popular, particularly if you have plants that need different water requirements. So say I have a piece of grandma's geranium right here, and what I really need is a lot of water around that geranium, or I have ornamental grasses over here, I have Turk's cap over here, I have Salvia greggii over here that don't need a lot of water. They don't require a lot of water. And so my irrigation, if I have those in the same zone, becomes very difficult if we're using spray irrigation or drip irrigation with inline drippers. But if I use point source, I can put the drippers different for the water needs. I'm going to remind you, when you buy the drippers, buy the pressure regulated drippers in order to accomplish that real well. Then the other thing I have to point out is how flexible the tubing is for odd shapes and odd ways of putting this all together. And so whatever way, whatever narrow space you have, a parking lot island, a little narrow place like your parkway, very, very easy. Raised beds for your children's garden or your community garden. Now, this was by, I can't remember which, but it's in Fort Worth Library. They prepared all the soil, and then they put this fabric down, and it's real easy. The landscape helps control the weeds, and that was their idea. And it's real easy to cut some, and then you plant your plant in there. But they wanted drip irrigation, and I was disappointed that they were putting that above above the fabric, because it changes the infiltration rate. So if you want the fabric, put your tubing down first and put the fabric on top of that. Okay, now the other thing I run into is my vegetable garden is way over in that corner of my yard, because I didn't want to, tear up this nice lawn area next to the house. This happens a lot. And I said that, you've got choices there. You could find your main line out there in your backyard and attach it that way, but sometimes it's much, much, much easier to bring a garden hose out there. And you can see this is what I'm doing right here. I've got the tubing laid out there, and then I've got an attachment right here, this attachment right here. And you see that on the inside? It's where I can put my garden hose. A very, very, very neat tool to know that it exists. There's black ones and there's white ones, so there's different ones, but this is so easy to do. And so I can use my, starting here, I can screw this. Well, this is 3/4 inch. I need a 1/2 inch one. Screw in there to get that started, and then I can bring my garden hose to it. And I always recommend you have a hose caddy. Do you see this hose caddy down here at the bottom? And if I'm attaching it to my faucet, which is what most people do, then do I need 50 foot of hose or 100 foot of hose or whatever to get it out there? But I can put this is what's called a splitter. I always put splitter, little backflow prevention device, and then a splitter, and then my filter, and then my clock, my timer. You always, always want timers. And if you're converting a system or starting a new system, you would use an irrigation controller, but you have choices with these timers. This is a wonderful, wonderful timer by a company called Dig. It's battery operated, and you could set it just like you could set an irrigation controller to come on at a certain time of day, run for a certain length of time, and then go off. Now, it doesn't turn your spigot off, but it turns your drip irrigation tubing off. The one that I'm showing here and on my attachment there is what is called a manual timer. And a manual timer is the type of thing where you are going to set it. And so most of these are set to be run as long as 2 hours. And the reason for that is in most drought and water emergency plans, if you have drip irrigation around your tree or around your foundation, they're going to allow you to run it for 2 hours. That's 120 minutes. And so you can see I've got 120 minutes on this timer, and this faucet timer and all the other faucet timers are going to be that way. But, it's an advantage to have that other type where you would be, okay, I'm going to get us back there, where you would be going away and for a couple of days or a week and have the timer on there where you set the time of day it goes on, the length of time it runs, just like an irrigation timer. And so by manual, I mean, see, I'm going to turn this either to on, or I'm going to bring it all the way over. I'm turning it the wrong way, aren't I? No, I'm not. I'm going to turn it all the way over here. And so let's say I want to run it 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 120 minutes. I set it there, and then you can hear it click, 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 clicking. And then when it gets back to 0, it's going to turn the water off going into your garden hose, going into your drip irrigation, but it's not going to turn off your faucet. And so eventually you have to get back out there and turn that faucet off. Okay, now let me check how much time we have. Okay, now converting to existing system. We usually use a 1/2 inch drip line, and the drip adapter with the pressure regulator and filter, although like I said, you could put that in with your valve box. This is the parking lot island that someone has converted. And so what they have done is they are using their riser and they have just added a drip adapter there. And so the drip adapter then goes on to the existing riser. You can see this can be screwed in right like this onto the riser, and then start your drip irrigation on this barb fitting here. These pieces come in black or brown or purple or green. Does everybody see how you could do that? You would be taking off this and putting this on, okay? And hopefully covering all that with mulch. Okay, so this is the converter that you can buy, and you can see, I think I showed this to you already. That's what this is. And they're not all made by the manufacturers to look just like this, but they're all the same thing. They have a filter inside, a pressure regulator here, and then a place for you to start your drip irrigation tubing. In this case, I'm using a T. Okay, then we could do it in a valve box, or then we can convert to micro irrigation. This is one thought that I have had, because a 1/2-inch tubing seems to get nicked a lot in our school gardens. And so maybe the 1/4-inch tubing, as the kid is using their trowel, might not roll away from that shovel coming in. I don't know, but I did that right down here on Azle Avenue at the elementary school there. And the master gardener, gosh, that was last spring, maybe March, right before the pandemic. So I don't know how much vegetable gardening they did before they had to leave, but the master gardener hasn't called me back and said they had a lot of mistakes. So use one head for the conversion, or two. Now, the reason I'm saying this is, what if in your front not vegetable garden, your front shrub and ground cover bed, you have it on either side of your sidewalk that comes up to your front door? And so same zone, same valve is running those two areas. Well, you then could use two heads, one on each side of the sidewalk, so you don't have to bang a pipe under that sidewalk. So there are reasons we might want to use two instead of one. Must convert the entire zone, station or zone. Remember, it's gallons per hour, and loop the outer loop 6 inches into where you want it irrigated. So you can see the end of this bed is bordered by that metal border thing. And you can see how we started our loop all the way out here. We put a second loop around this tree. And then we put T's all along here, to come across to the other side of the loop where we'll have T's to meet that. And so it's very, very easy, very, very quick and easy. I had my one of my students in the engineering department draw this. So if you're converting an area, you need to turn that zone on and see how large of an area the sprinkler heads are wetting. And this means you got to get paper and pencil, maybe a ruler out, but definitely a tape measure, to see how wide and how long, those heads are irrigating that area. And then you need to draw some sort of figure on your paper in order to have this. So here's my valve box out here. And then here's the head. I just chose the closest one to it, but it could be any head in this region, or it could be two if I have a sidewalk there, or a driveway even. And so then I put my T right here, and then I'm going to make my outer loop 6 inches into the irrigated area. And then I'm going to be able to, after I've drawn that on paper, I'm going to be able to say, let's see, I need a T there. I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I can count how many T's I need. Anytime, we're doing this in a square pattern, we might want to use elbows, or we might want to just bend the tubing. But we definitely need the T's to put it all together, back and forth, about 12 inches apart. And then we need couplings. Couplings are going to be, so if that's more than 100 feet of tubing, you're going to have to use a coupling to put the tubing together. But the couplings are where you put two pieces of pipe together. But the coupling also becomes your repair. And so quite often, you can see the part of my coupling that shows right here. You can see where the barbs are. You see that? And that becomes my repair. Or if I need to lengthen the tubing, that becomes my putting two pieces of pipe together. But we'll look at the repair in pictures in just a minute. Does everybody understand that? Make a grid. Make a grid. Can be square, can be a circle, can be an oval, can be a triangle, So here's our different, converters. And then here is a different kind of add to the converter. And so instead of putting a T on the top of this converter, because it was a little bit away from where I wanted to start my loop, you can see I use these. to go in and start. But immediately, do you see I put a T here? Let me get a hold of this right here, a T right here. I have to start my loop. And so sometimes you don't want a T here, you just want the elbow. And I think I showed that to you, didn't I, right here? Okay. Then the point source drip irrigation tubing. This is usually goes in a 1/2-inch tubing, but there are 3/4-inch tubings, and they're even, bigger tubing than that farmers and ranchers sometimes use out in their fields. And that's where you do the hole punching. That's where you have to know the plant water requirements so you get the water out exactly where that plant needs it. Now the emitters, all the way from 0.1 gallon an hour all the way up to 20 gallons an hour are not color coded. And so you don't hand a green dripper to someone and say, I need a 5 gallon an hour dripper. Would you go buy me a pack at Lowe's? And they look and find blue drippers and bring them back and it says 0.3 gallons an hour. It's not color coded across manufacturers. So you've got to pay attention to the packaging, what it says there. This is another type of micro irrigation converter. I think both I know Home Depot sells these, where this is going to go on the top of your riser. I thought I had one out here to show you. The advantage of doing your micro irrigation off of all your different risers on your flower beds may be better than doing a grid thing. And so I can put drippers with the stakes, like this. I think I showed you that in a picture where my 1/4-inch tubing will come in here. And then this is a breakaway to become the coupling for the 1/4-inch tubing to go into here or into a point source tubing. And then I might not want to go the expense of having those stakes built in. So I might I'll get a hold of my pointer. I might do this. So this is just my dripper going into the end of my tubing, and to hold it in place so it doesn't snake around when the water's going, I can hold it. There are different sizes of these that you can use to put the tubing in. And so these are very, very handy to have. I think they come in packs of 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 100. Okay, and so here it is, different brand, but same thing. Now let me point out one more, I forgot to point out one more thing to them. Each of the areas, in this case, it has 6 or 8, I can't remember which, but do you see there's a little like gate valve on each of these? So if I only need 2 tubings, I can shut all the other ones off. And this has that too, but you can't see it quite as well, this brand. And so again, you can see they put 2 out there. Here's how it looks when it's running. A lot of people will do these in annual beds because it's real easy to put them aside, till the soil again, get your annuals in for the next season. Real easy to do. And again, you can get those drippers to put out a spray like that. But again, you want it very close to the ground to avoid that. This is a conversion kit. This is your filter in the riser, in the sort of like your sprinkler head, and here's your pressure regulator, here's your attachment. And it comes with the micro tubing and the micro things, the drippers and the stakes to put them out into your garden. And so, it just depends on if you want to buy a kit the first time you do this or not. This kit over here is to put in a very large drip irrigation, and you can see the pressure regulator, you can see the filter, and all the different fittings and the stakes you need to put out your 1/2-inch tube. This is my diagram for you to remember about your garden spigot. I'm holding it up right here. I always use a splitter at the backflow prevention device. And then I put a splitter in because I don't want to eliminate washing my hands at the spigot or maybe filling up a bucket of water. When you have yours going parallel to the water flow, that's on. And when it's perpendicular like this, that is all. There are other kinds of splitters out there. There's plastic ones, there's steel ones, there's brass ones. But the little tiny knobs on those brass ones, I can't do those anymore with my fingers for some reason. I like these much, much better. And then your filter, your timer, your pressure regulator, and your tubing adapter. And so your tubing is going to go into here. The barbs are on the inside, and you're good to go for your tubing, whether it's a point source tubing or the drip line tubing. Subsurface, like I said, you have to look for that drip line that says subsurface. Several different brands are out there. And then the trencher that is used to do that isn't like a dip switch because you're only going down 4 inches. Sort of reminds me of a skill saw. Or a long, long time ago, I had a manual edger that had a blade like that you ran along the sidewalk or the driveway. And then you put it down, you hold it down with either your plastic ones or your steel ones, hold it down in the hole and use your T's and elbows, whatever you want, and fill it in. And there it is. Now, this is in the springtime after about the 4th mowing. And the recovery in the springtime is hugely, hugely fast. You can still see it. You can still see the valve box that they had to change out and everything. So this is where they put all the filter and the pressure regulator. This is where I think they have to turn it off and on. And so you can see. This is in the winter time, messy, messy, messy. The street's over on this side, the sidewalk's on this side. They're turning it on to see how fast or the timing, how it's going to wet the area. And then they're putting the soil back on and then the sod's on. That's not quite as dramatic, but it's just one method, another method of putting in a new system or adapting that parkway into drip irrigation. Now, right here, what we did, this was a big, big demonstration that Texas A&M Extension put up in the city of McKinney by their athletic fields, right under their water tower. We put in pervious pavement. This is all pervious concrete right here. Boy, that was a trip working with the concrete company because they'd never done that before. They were really, really pleased to have that skill, knowledge and skill after we taught them that. And so our water source is right here because whoever put the PVC pipe in put it in the middle, and that's okay, And so we're going from here. That's where our filter and our pressure regulator are, where the main water line is that we're attaching to. We're using a purple lid, to denote that it's irrigation water, which is, once it's in your irrigation system, it's considered unpotable. And so we've gone all the way around, and then back and forth and back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Because this area was so large, if you look really, really carefully, we also came across this way. See the little tiny ones, and again, this is done with, this. Now, the other thing I have to point out to you, when you're cutting the tubing like this, remember there's a dripper and here's a dripper. You see what I'm saying? And so this is 12 inches. You don't want to cut real close to the dripper because your fittings aren't going to fit in there. So I always try to tell everyone you're going to cut in the middle. Cut in the middle. You can't get too close to either one of the drippers themselves. This is the caddies I told you about the professionals have. And some of them are not on a tractor. Some of them, they pull and push. And this is a trencher that is inserting the tubing at the same time it's cutting the trench. Those are only rentable from other irrigators that have them. The rental companies around here where you can rent mowers and chainsaws and stuff like that, tillers, don't have those available yet. I wish they would. Somewhere near the end of this, you might want to crimp it or put a cap on it. That's what this, no, I picked up the wrong thing. This is a cap. And one of the advantages of that is you can unscrew that cap. The tubing would be coming in right here. And you can unscrew that cap to clean out all the tubing. And sometimes that's not at the end. You can put another T in somewhere and then put a small piece of tubing and put that right there. There are automatic washouts that you can put there. There are also automatic air release. So you see how this can release the air? Because a lot of people, they go, well, there's no water coming out, but you hear this hissing noise. And that's pushing all the air out before it can let the water into there. So the air release thing is available too. This is a crimper. Sometimes we use these in vegetable gardens, and the caps too at the end of the bed. So this is an example of a winter vegetable garden. You can see all the trees are deciduous. We're collecting our rainwater off of the scattering, both sides of the potting shed, putting it in here, and then here's our vegetable garden. So what we've done is we're bringing the water out of here with a small transfer pump. They cost $65, $70 to put a little bit of pressure in this to get at the length of this vegetable garden. It won't do by gravity flow when you're using the 1/2 inch. It goes by gravity flow out of a rain barrel like this through your 1/4 inch, but not to manufacturer specification. So you can see they put what we call a header right across here. And then each one of these has a T and the 1/2 inch shutoff valve. I have no idea where I laid that down, but I showed it to you, where I can turn off the rows. See, I don't need to irrigate these rows. I need to irrigate my lettuce, my onions, and this is my garlic. I have cabbages left, you know, and so we don't need to irrigate the areas we don't need to irrigate, and that's what those shut-off valves are. So I can put that in the tubing, have it on or have it off. Okay, so this is at the Juvenile Detention Center garden for their school. And you can see we're coming into the garden from a spigot that's over in this area behind the compost bins. And we're using an elbow to get it into the garden. There's our shut-off. And then we've got the header going here. And since each of these boxes, we're going to have all the same crop, squash over here, you know, melons over there, or that's summer crops, but we could also have all our winter crop. We only needed one shutoff valve. If you're going to put a different crop in each row, then you need a shutoff valve on each row. I was trying to get, you know, him to show you how, you know, rocking and pushing puts these fittings together. Now, if you have something different in each row, at the head of it, you have your shutoff valve. At the bottom, you're going to put that cap or that crimper. And in this case, we were using the crimpers. And the crimpers are real easy to open up and let it flow out if you think you need to water, to keep it out. Now remember the timers, faucet timers, battery powered timers. Some of these battery powered timers are really good and will last a long, long time. They're using, some of the older ones were using a 9-volt battery, but the newer ones are using 2 AA batteries because research shows it works longer. If you have an existing system, of course, you're going to use your existing controller. Because remember, you're not doing anything with this valve. This valve is staying in place. This wire is staying in place. So you're going to run the drip irrigation tubing where you converted an existing system or where you started a new system from here. And it's very important for you to understand. Run time, of course, you figure gallons per hour. Run it 15 minutes or run it 10 minutes. Make the math easy. Wait about 30 minutes and get your screwdriver out. And you're going to put it right next to the hose and see how deep it's gone. And then you're going to start moving it between the tubings, to see how that it filled up that whole area is what you want to do. The drip pattern is going to be in the infiltration rate. The spread of it horizontally is going to be a little bit different depending on if you use point source. This is an example of one type, and here's an example of another type. And a lot of times, I know this is neurotic, but when you're moving those across your community garden or your shrub garden, your garden. If you have the emitters catty corner, it makes it a little bit easier. So this is a wetting pattern. This is for your point source. This is for your spray irrigations you might be using. This is for your subsurface drip irrigation tubing that you may put under a lawn area. The reason why you use subsurface irrigation drip line in a lawn area, so the mower won't suck it up and chop it up. Okay, now the repair. So this is over at a school garden. I have no idea where it was. They gave me good directions. And the master gardener said there's lots. And I walked into the garden and I said, I can see where it is. And they looked at me like, what? And I said, well, look at all the calcium over here on this raised bed, and look at all this over here. You could see the damage that it was creating. So they must have been running this for quite a while before it was. So what we did is I got some flags out, we turned it on, and everywhere there was a leak, we flagged it like this so that we could come back when the water's not running. Much, much easier to repair when the water's not running. And so you can see the little tiny nick that one kid's shovel, or maybe it was a hoe, made in the drip irrigation tubing. And all I'm going to do is cut that out, and then I'm going to put the tubing back together with one of these couplings. Now if it's a big piece, I'm going to do it a little bit differently, and let me show you that. So here I am putting the two pieces back together after I've cut that piece out. Now, there it is, all together. Okay, now here what happened is you can see all the damage, all the calcium, all the sand, everything. And what happened is the nick here was right next to one of the hose. And so what I'm going to have to do here is I'm going to have to replace that. If I don't, the water distribution's not going to be right. So I always save, no matter where I'm going, the little pieces of drip tubing. And I tell the master gardeners, the school gardeners, and the community gardeners, save all your pieces, because that's what you're going to use for repair. So in this case, I need a dripper there. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to have to use two of these. And so I'm going to have to cut a piece long enough to replace this compromised dripper right here and with this new one. And so I will need two of these couplings in order to do that, remembering that I can't cut this tubing too close to the next dripper or the next dripper down here. Okay, purple, I have to remind everyone, purple is for non-potable water, which irrigation water is considered. Even though we're not using rainwater, they still want us to use all this stuff. It's not mandatory right now, but eventually it will be. Maintenance is clean your filter every now and then. If you're using wonderful, wonderful drinking water that your city is providing for you, safe, treated drinking water, you're all going to open these up and say, well, there's nothing in there. If you look real closely, you'll find some calcium crystals in there. If a freeze is expected and you have it attached to your faucet, you need to take it off of your faucet. Sometimes we cover our faucet, our outdoor faucets, and just lay that down on the ground. When you disconnect it, your faucet will automatically force air in there and the water will get out of the drip tubing. Not necessary in Tarrant County because we just haven't had freezes like that in a long time. A rain and freeze sensor should already be on your irrigation system. If you have one and you're using an irrigation controller, it should be there in this area. But if it's not, please add that, because that will prevent your irrigation system from running when you're getting ready to have a freeze. Now, all kinds of wonderful, wonderful things. All of this is on your city's website and Save Tarrant Water website. Please go to that website and look at all these wonderful advices they have for you about landscaping for water conservation, selecting plants for water conservation, and running your irrigation to lower your water bill, as well as, saving money for yourself. These are the tutorials I told you about. Netafim You know, Dig Corporation, Rainbird, and Toro. These are the main ones, main equipment that you're going to see out there. You can see them at your big box stores, at your irrigation supply, but you can also mail order them. There's several places you can mail order them from. Now, when we talk about saving water, you know, we're talking about by landscape design, by plant selection. So I want you to know that back in 1999, I helped write a program called Texas Smartscape for the North Central Texas Council of Government. It's still on the web. It's still available for you to look at all those plants. And then Earth Kind Landscaping has that also. Then Water University is what my colleagues call their website, where they have all this information about design and plant selection for you also. Please, please visit these. Now, if we can't figure all of this out, one of the things we have is a Tarrant County Master Gardener Help Desk. They are there from 9 o'clock to 4 o'clock Monday through Friday, and this is a phone number. This is a wonderful service that Texas A&M's Master Gardeners are doing for you. These are not horticulturists, but they're trained by horticulturists from all over the state of Texas. We have about 7,000 Master Gardeners in the state of Texas. Here in Tarrant County, we have about 700 Master Gardeners. They're doing wonderful, wonderful educational demonstrations and programs all over Tarrant County. So please call that number if you have more questions. They'd be glad to help you. If you need to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me through Heather. She was the one that invited you to come to, or from your city. Now, are there any questions, Heather, that we need to answer right away? Because I think we're almost out of time, aren't we?
Yeah, there's
Heather?
a few questions.
Okay.
Let's see. So someone did ask to clarify, okay, I know you put the chart up that talked about the amount of, if you have a certain amount of pressure, right, the total amount of feet that you can have. Is there like a maximum loop size, or is that like the total combined feet of drip, or how does that work?
Total combined.
Total combined. Okay, so all the little lines in between and everything, if you have that PSI, that's all you've got to work with, basically.
Right.
Okay. And then also to clarify a little bit about a rain barrel. So if you have a rain barrel and you don't have any type of pump or anything, is it not enough pressure to run any type of drip system?
It's for the 1/4 inch, you can run that off of a rain barrel, not to manufacturer specification, but it will run. And believe it or not, soaker hoses will also run off of rain barrels, not to manufacturer specification, but they will run. A little tiny transfer pump or a little tiny submergible pump, little giant submergible pump into a rain barrel, I mean, they cost about $60, and a little tiny transfer pump that you can get at Home Depot, they run about $60, $75 too. I only know Home Depot prices because there's one right down the street from where my office was when I was working for Extension, and so they always were sending me there to buy things.
Okay, well, I'm sure probably like Lowe's or whatever has similar prices too.
Oh, I'm sure they do. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you. Those are good questions. So thank you for your time and attention. And please don't hesitate contacting us if you have more questions.
Yeah, definitely. If you have more questions, look at any of those resources that Dotty gave us. You can also email us at conservation@trwd.com. And also, you'll receive an email in the next few days with a recording of this. So if you want to go back and look at some of this information and everything, it'll also be on SaveTarrantWater.com. All the videos are uploaded there. And then, again, if you want to stay connected with us, you can sign up for our newsletter there on SaveTarrantWater.com too, and learn about things like this in the future, all of these different educational events. And it looks like we have lots of people thanking us in the questions and in the chat. So thank you so much, Dotty, for all of that information.
Yeah, and my email is dottywoodson@gmail.com. It's Dotty with a Y. Don't send the Dotty with an IE because then my cousin gets it. So Dotty with a Y, dottywoodson@gmail.com. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Have a good afternoon.